sick and tired of your love-hate relationship with wine?
Welcome to the Feel It Alcohol-Free podcast. Hi, I'm Coach Ruby Williams.
And I'm Coach Susan Larkin.
We're two former wine lovers turned alcohol freedom coaches, exposing the lies about alcohol.
And giving you, our listeners, the tools to break free so you can feel lit.
And when you're lit, you'll feel healthier, freer, and more in control of your life.
So relax, kick back, and get ready to feel lit alcohol-free.
And don't forget, grab a copy of our wine-free weekend guide after the show. Welcome to the Feel It Alcohol-Free podcast. We have another amazing episode and a special guest today, Maureen Benkovich. She is a certified alcohol freedom coach like Susan and I, and she's also the author of The Role of Alcohol in Depression and Anxiety in the Life Coach's Toolkit. So Maureen is committed to helping women who are silently suffering with this particular type of loss and drinking to numb and hide grief. She has Sober Fit Chick coaching, and she focuses on empowering women who are childless not by choice, helping them to reclaim their identity and find healthier ways to cope with their anxiety and depression. So I'm so excited to welcome Maureen. And we met years ago, actually, in the This Naked Mind path. I was one of her coaches, and then she wanted to be a coach too. It's so exciting. So Maureen, will you introduce yourself and provide a little bit of background around your alcohol-free journey? All right.
Yeah. Ruby,
Hi,
Susan,
Maureen.
thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I love you guys. And Ruby was one of my inspirations to become a coach. She was one of my coaches, and she was actually the first person I called when I said, I want to become a coach. So I'm always grateful for meeting Ruby. And so about me, people, I started drinking at a young age just because of our culture in the 80s. In high school, I was drinking, and then in college, and there was some binging in college, but it was, again, more of a cultural thing. But I did recognize even in high school, like, ooh, this makes me feel more confident. I had a bit of social anxiety, and so I would feel loosened up. And so I did notice that. I remember that. But then I was a pharmaceutical sales rep. So still the drinking was, moderate, but the whining and dining of doctors and work hard, play hard ethic in that corporate world was there, as I know you guys know about. So again, the drinking was starting to increase, but still what people would call moderate. And then really the biggest struggle was in my marriage because we wanted to have children. And I'm the last of 5 children. My dad was in World War II, just to let you know the ages. And so I grew up in a very traditional home. And I remember when I went to him, I wanted to be a lawyer like my dad. I'm like, I want to go to law school. I want to work with you. He's like, no, you want to be a mom, stay home like your mother with children. And it was sort of like really ingrained in me. And I loved how my mom could stay home with us. So it really got ingrained in me to be a mother. That was the next step.
Wow.
Yeah. And so when we got married, we got pregnant right away, 6 months into marriage. And I'm like, thought, here we go. And then I miscarried, and I was shocked because like I said, I'm from 5 kids. There was never any problem in our family. And my husband has a large family too. But, we thought, okay, so we'll just try again. We're young. And we did. And then as we weren't getting pregnant, we moved into the fertility world, infertility treatments. And nobody ever tells you they're brutal. Mm-hmm. They're very heart-wrenching. You're filled up with a lot of hormones. Your emotions are like a roller coaster, like you can't believe. The big highs, the big lows. And then ultimately I would get pregnant, and then I would miscarry. Oh. And we'd do it again. And I get pregnant, and we miscarry. Yeah. But all my friends around me, were getting pregnant, having babies, having another baby, building their families. So I'm just like devastated, not understanding what is going on, and also really struggling with how I was feeling inside. Like, it was hard for me to be around my friends. It was hard to go to baby showers. I was happy for them, of course, but I just couldn't understand what was going on. And I just didn't know anybody like me. There was nobody like me. So that was so hard. And then we finally stopped doing fertility treatments. They're super expensive. They're just heart-wrenching, like I said. And someone came to us at our church and said, there's a young girl, teenage girl who's pregnant, and their parents want to know, they want to adopt through the church. And we're like, well, this must be it, right? Like baby on the doorstep. This must be all the reasons why. The kicker was she was going to deliver in 3 weeks from the time we found out. So it was like a fast decision. Mm-hmm. And we had to write letters to her with some other couples why we wanted to become parents. And she picked us. So our church like gave us all these, baby room, baby stuff. We were getting ready. We're like, okay, like here we go. 3 weeks, we're going to be parents all of a sudden. And a week before her delivery, her parents backed out and really abruptly. And they're like, don't contact us. We don't want to hear from you. Leave our daughter alone. Like all this stuff was really strange, but it was worse than a miscarriage. It was gut wrenching. And, having to give everything back to everybody and explain. And people are very well-meaning, but what they often say are things like, you can try again, or, oh, I have a friend who tried forever and they had a baby, and, or really ignorant things like, take my kids for a weekend, then you won't want to have kids. All kinds of things.
Oh, Maureen.
May I ask, Maureen, what would you have wanted to hear from people in your church and your friends?
I just would want to hear like, wow, that really sucks. I'm so sorry. You must be in a lot of pain. And can I just sit with you? Can I just be with you and let you cry? And even now I'm getting emotional because I didn't know how to grieve. And this is what I've learned on the other side of alcohol and finally looking at my grief journey through clear head, clear eyes, and finding a support group for this very issue. I was experiencing something called disenfranchised grief. So what it means is like, it's not tangible. Nobody can see it. When you lose a parent or God forbid a child or even a pet, you had this thing that people saw and knew, and then it was no longer there. And there's usually a funeral or ceremony or cards or, sympathy. Right. This was something intangible to everybody else. Even my husband couldn't even feel what I felt. And so I was very confused because people were very much like, get over it. Just get over it. Keep going. Oh, you can do whatever you want now,
Try again.
And I was just, try again. Or, hey, you dodged a bullet. Like just the whole gamut of stuff. Oh, so I'm super depressed. I'm already a person who has depression. I'm on antidepressants. And I don't know who I am. That's the biggest loss. It's not even now, I know this so much of not having a child. It's the loss of the identity of being a mom and being part of the mom club and going through all the experiences that everybody else does. And this is the kind of grief, this disenfranchised grief that keeps on giving, because with every transitional phase you watch your friends and their kids go through, first day of school pictures, Christmas, walking, birthdays, everything is so child-centric.
Yeah.
Holidays, commercials are killer at Christmas time. There's another term I learned called pronatalism, and it's not a judgmental term. It's just what is. This world is very pronatalistic.
Yes.
Think about it. When you have conversations with people, what's the usual icebreaker with women?
Do you have children?
How old are your kids?
How are you
Sometimes
doing?
they just assume you have children, right? And just ask, how old are your kids? Yeah.
So then I go through this. What do I say? How much do I say? No, I couldn't have them. Well, why not? Oh, well, and I had things from like my mother-in-law being like, well, you shouldn't work. That's the problem. And other people, everybody would want to offer you their opinions. But then as the years went on, I was just that woman who didn't have, poor Maureen. Yeah. She didn't have children, that sad woman. And I didn't want to be that. So subconsciously, I would say I started to develop this party girl persona. Hey, I'm the friend you can go out and party with when you get a babysitter for your kids. And I'll get pretty wild too. Let's go. But as you know, and I was a binge drinker, right? So I wouldn't drink during the week because I was also a fitness person. personal trainer. I was even a fitness competitor at times. So I was really living out of alignment with my values. But the weekends were so hard because everybody would get together and talk about their kids when we're out together. And I'd be like, ask all the polite questions at first for the first 10 minutes. But as the conversations went on and on and on, I'd be like, drink, please.
Yeah,
'Cause
I get it.
Yeah. And sometimes I would end up in a puddle, like bawling my eyes out, and people would be like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I'm worth nothing. There's nothing. I got pretty dark. Who am I? Why am I here? I'm broken as a woman. And this is not uncommon in women who are childless, not by choice, which is another term I never learned because, as I said, there was no support back then.
Yeah.
It was either like you couldn't have them or didn't want them. There wasn't this whole gray area in between. And there are really so many women who are childless, not by choice or circumstance. Right. Okay. So I was childless, not by choice, and I tried infertility and failed adoption. There are many women who just don't ever meet the right person.
Yeah. One of my best friends, we've had the same discussion. She's just hasn't found the right partner, or had long-term partners, but she never had a child, and now she's 50. Right. So I have had this discussion with several friends.
Some people are sick. They can't.
Right.
They're at cancer. They can't they can't get pregnant, they do infertility and beyond and cancer drugs. Like there are so many women now that I've met, that I understand there's so many ways to get to this childless, not by choice. And it's really important to have that distinction because there are many women who are child free, right? By choice.
Right.
That's totally different.
I never want to have children and they know it, and that's great. And that's fine. Yeah.
And they still experience their own set of hurdles, right? Because still society is that pronatalistic, and why wouldn't you want to have kids? So they deal with so here I was drinking, and I was now tying my drinking to sadness. And you both know what that does when you start tying an addictive substance to trauma, stress, depression. And I was wearing this camouflage mask of this party girl. And then, I'd drink so heavily on the weekends, the binging, I'd be wrecked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but not just physically, because at that time I was still young enough that I'm still like metabolizing it better and still recovering, and I'm in good shape. I'm a fitness person, but emotionally and mentally, I would go way down. Wow. Really depressed, dark. And I was alone, right? Everybody's taking care of their kids, getting to the bus, making sure nobody knows what I'm doing. I can hide it. I can hide it all week long that I'm really depressed, and then be the party girl again on the weekend. And I needed the alcohol to lift me up, to give me that dopamine boost, to get through the socializing and the child-centric talks and then just the feeling of like, wow, I don't fit in with anybody.
Wow. You are outlining this so well, and how your alcohol addiction just progressed. It makes so much sense. And I am so sorry you went through all of that grieving and decades. Yeah.
I mean, I had a miscarriage as well. And, and it is true that the society doesn't know how to help you with that or deal with it at all. And I'd had a child. So I felt guilty even being upset. It was sort of like, well, you have one, so why are you so upset about it? You know what I mean? Like, it was like, and then my children, I did have a second child, and they're 6 years apart, and people would even ask, like, why are your kids 6 years apart? Like, that's weird. And it's like, well, do you really want to know all the details?
Yeah, do you really want to know?
Oh my gosh. And I remember being in church. Oh, Maureen, when you were just explaining, I remember a good friend of mine telling me that she was pregnant right after I had the miscarriage. And I started sobbing in church. It was like so embarrassing. I was just trying to like suck it up. Yeah. And feeling so guilty that I was feeling so upset. Like, you don't know what to do with it. And and you're not, like you said, this disenfranchised grieving. And I mean, it's not the same because I do have children and I want to acknowledge that. But then when you experiencing the loss and then how do you grieve without feeling guilty, about feeling jealous of other people? And
All
it's
that.
just so complicated. My heart goes out to you. Yeah.
We're taught in this world, if you try hard enough, if you just keep going, you'll get what you want. Well, that wasn't the case.
Around fertility, you have such
Yeah.
little control, and it is like all aspects, it is so true. And for a control freak, that's hard to deal with, right?
Yeah. So then I knew I was drinking too much, and I was really struggling with it because, like I said, I'm a personal trainer. I'm teaching other people about health and wellness. And I'm like, what are you doing? I would look in the mirror and go, what are you doing? You are killing yourself. You're literally, I didn't even know how bad it was at that time. I just knew it was bad.
Yeah.
And so at 38, I decided to do a figure contest. It's a type of like bodybuilding, but you still look like a woman. And I remember I had to tell all my friends, so look, I'm not going to be drinking for like 6 months. I'm doing this thing. And they were all like, what? Why would you do that? But I remember, so that was 38 then. This is 20 years ago, feeling relief. Like, now I have a reason not to drink that way.
Yeah.
Now I have a reason not to live up to those expectations I had set up from everybody. That Maureen's going to be the crazy party girl, because I didn't know how to stop. So I did this contest, and I was in the best shape of my life, and it was great, but I didn't do the work. I didn't take that time. So it's basically just like white knuckling it.
Yeah,
until
white
I was
knuckling.
done the contest, and I go right back to my drinking and even more.
But how did you feel like at 6 months alcohol free? So did you actually get 6 months, or did you kind of have?
Oh no! When you have the threat of getting up on a stage in a tiny bikini that you're gluing on your ass, you will stick.
You literally are gluing it on your ass, right? With glue. Yeah, that's so funny. Oh my gosh!
So you will
I'm
not,
so proud of you, though. That's amazing. I'm
you.
so proud of you.
Well, I did it again. So I did another one. It took me 8 months of prep that time, and again, same thing. But I didn't no one ever, encouraged me, or I thought about doing the work about, have you noticed you're feeling so good? Do you think there's a reason why? So I went right back to the drinking even after the second one. And, and people were like, my friends like, oh, thank God you're not doing that thing again. So no support again, but I do remember the feeling of relief. So that was like the first, red flag kind of thing. That was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And then the depression never stops. The sadness, because like I said, with every, change in the transitions, you watch your friends experience, or even like I could never have my parents never be grandparents. Like that was hard and sad, and explaining to them, and, not having siblings with my, brothers and sisters' kids, all those kind of things, just all the losses that keep coming. So I still wasn't putting it together, but I was putting together, okay, after every time I binge, I start to like really get depressed and go down. There's a connection here. So I was a pharmaceutical rep. I'm into the body. I like to look up things. So I started looking it up. Alcohol-induced depression, alcohol-induced anxiety. Sure enough, there's, a myriad of studies out there, how it really exacerbates your depression. So there are, I'm going to go with millions of people on antidepressants drinking alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
So here we are taking these and anti-anxiety drugs or others, taking these drugs that are supposed to regulate, our neurotransmitters, and yet we're drinking a substance that depletes our neurotransmitters. So you're making the medicine ineffective, and you're increasing the very thing that you're trying to treat, and you're also self-medicating with alcohol.
Right.
So the depression is just getting worse. And so many people, and as a pharmaceutical rep, people never talked about that. My training, doctors don't talk about it. I went to my doctor, and I'm sure you've had this too. I said, I think I'm drinking too much. And she said, well, you're fit. You work out. Look, you're fine. That's all I need to hear.
Isn't that crazy? I know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or you lied to your doctor. I remember looking at the doctor chart, and it said 7 or 14 drinks for women in a week. And I'm like, yeah, I have seven drinks in a week. No, I was probably having 14 in a day. So yeah.
I was actually telling the truth, and I was getting written off by my doctors, and I wasn't strong enough in wanting to change that. I was like, well, okay. But so the progression then was interesting, because I finally knew, because my depression had gotten so bad. I probably haven't said it on any podcast yet. I don't think I'd be here if I hadn't stopped drinking. I was considering the only way I could think of to end my pain. And I called my doctor and I called my therapist. I said, I'm struggling with suicidal ideation. And I knew enough about that because I used to sell antidepressants. And I had gone off of my antidepressants, and they're like, the medical community, all right, get right back on those. Okay. But I said, I'm going to stop drinking. I got to stop drinking. And that's when I found the group that Ruby was coaching me in. And it said, do you want to do this for a year? Do you really want to make alcohol small and irrelevant in your life? And that was like a lifeline. I'm like, yes, I definitely do. Interestingly, like once I got into it, it only took about 2 months for me to be like, I am done. Because the biggest thing was to hear alcohol is an addictive substance and it's not your fault.
Yeah.
I love that.
That was the thing that really got me too.
Me too.
Same. Once I could take responsibility and realize there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
That just broke everything open. Yeah. It was so life-changing.
And that you're not alone. This group
Yes.
or a coach
Yes.
or somebody that you can really be honest with and share. Like right now, I am so proud of you, Maureen, for sharing vulnerably. This is like a big step to you keep sharing. And because if you're brave enough to do this, then you're helping maybe millions of women, whoever's going to see this and listen to this, it might be in the same place.
That is why I'm doing it. I kept it to myself for years because I didn't understand it, and I just thought, what's wrong with you? Get over it. Because that's what everybody else thought too.
Yeah.
So then interestingly enough, you can't really grieve, right? You cannot go through the grief process. If you're drinking, you stay stuck in grief. You just stay stuck. And that's where I was stuck. So removing the alcohol, that first big domino, I started to look back on, those 20 years of that terrible dark period. I'm like, wow, it really was tied to not being able to have children. So again, I start Googling, there's gotta be other people like me, because now I've learned from being in a coaching community, that's what helps, community and vulnerability. So I found this group called it's relatively new, like within the last, I'm going to say, well, let me back up. I found a book called The Unexpected Life, Living the Unexpected Life by Jody Day. Anybody who is suffering with this now, if you hear this, get this book. I highlighted everything. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the thoughts I've had in my head that I've never said to anybody. And she's telling other women's stories. I'm like, there are women like me. It was eye-opening. I'm 58 now, right? And I'm just now hearing this for the first time. These terms, childless not by choice, disenfranchised grief, pronatalism, and just women all around the world struggling with this. And infertility is on the rise.
Yes.
Unexplained infertility. And so then I found the Childless Collective, because she started it, called Gateway Women, and then another woman took it over, Katie Seppi, and it's called the Childless Collective. And I just interviewed her on my podcast because I want to get this out there. I want women to know there's these resources and you are not alone. And if you're childless not by choice, you don't have to numb. You don't have to hide. It is not your fault, just like I learned with alcohol. And there are other women out there who you can relate to. So the first time I got on a Zoom call in the Childless Collective, I'm going to get all emotional. I saw 6 other women just like me. I had never experienced that. And I could talk freely about my hurt, about when I felt jealous, about how broken I felt sometimes. And there were other women who felt the same way. And that was like unbelievably healing.
Yeah. That does sound similar to an alcohol-free journey, because that's the same thing that people say is I finally am sharing that, all those thoughts. You think it's only you. I thought it was only me waking up in the middle of the night, beating myself up and just like not sleeping. But no, this happens to almost everyone drinking, or a lot of people drinking, right? But you just don't know because no one's talking about it. So I see the similarities.
Yes.
So yeah.
I
I'm
love
so
that you're talking about this, Maureen. I love that.
Me
I love
too.
that we're having you on our podcast to get
I
it out there.
know. It's making
help
me
people-
emotional.
I know, me too. To help people find you, to find these resources. I think it's so important. Oh my gosh. And not suffer alone.
The neat thing about the Childless Collective is within this whole group of women around the world, so that's like cool, right?
Yeah.
Are subgroups. So you can then go delineating further. Like I joined a Christian group because I'll tell you in the church, they don't handle this at all. And you feel very disenfranchised from church. And many women leave their faith and leave the church because they just aren't acknowledged.
Yeah.
And so to be in that group too is very powerful. And I also joined a group in my geographical area. Like, so to meet
So
other
cool.
women that I can
Have coffee. Give them a hug.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just really cool that there is now a resource. There wasn't when I was going through it. It was just like, get over it, suck it up, move on. And now it's like, no, this is like incredibly
So
painful
if
trauma.
you are suffering alone with this, especially if you're drinking alcohol, please reach out to Maureen. She is your support.
Yeah. So I wish I could give you a hug.
I know.
I feel it from across the way. So thank
good.
you.
Well, I just feel like God is going to really use you in this. You know, like you said, the church doesn't handle it well, but it can learn. It can learn from you, and God can use you in this way to really help the women that are suffering like you did, and then suffering with alcohol. So then it's the double whammy, right? You're
Double whammy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I couldn't, it was finally, so I was now at this point 2 years alcohol free. And just this past Christmas, man, I got hit with unbelievable grief because for the first time I'm experiencing holidays, you know, when you're alcohol free at first, the first year's like, oh, this is what it's like to be alcohol free. This is what it's like to go through this holiday and that, all your firsts, right? So I'm more focused on that. The second year was more like, this is interesting how the second year is different than the first. But
Totally.
The third year, Christmas really hit me hard this year. And I was like, oh my gosh, I thought I was, through this, but I had never truly grieved it without numbing.
Yes.
And so I let myself, this is the difference. I let myself, but I also have learned to place a lot of boundaries. I don't have to go to christening, showers, birthday parties for kids where there's a lot of alcohol, by the way.
Baby showers, maybe. Yeah.
Baby showers. Yeah. I don't have to watch the Hallmark movies or the commercials. Christmas, it looks very different for me. So I got encouraged through the Childless Collective. What do you want to create your holiday tradition around you and your husband?
Love that.
I'm married, so I'm fortunate. So creating new traditions, what does it look like for me? I don't have to fit into the mold.
That's beautiful.
And there's women all over the world that now you can connect and talk about. I'm so thankful you came on our podcast to talk about this. This is something that really needs to be shared. And I really appreciate your whole journey. But I want to segue now into Maureen. We talked a lot about grief. So now you're alcohol free for, how many years now?
It'll be 3 in September.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what do you do to feel it alcohol free? Yeah.
Everything feels better alcohol free. And I never would have believed that, on the other side of it. But first of all, I've always liked to exercise. So how much better do I feel? Instead of getting up and punishing myself because I'm trying to make up for the drinking, no, I'm going to my workout and I'm giving it my all and I'm getting stronger. I'm making gains. I like that. That makes me happy. Our vacations are now revolving around being active, not around, going out and drinking and dinners. We did last year, we went to Croatia and did a backroads trip. We cycled through Croatia.
So fun.
So cool. And other people were drinking on our tour, but I didn't care. I felt great. So that's to experience everything, being outside and using your body and taking care of it and being strong. The first time I went to Venice, Italy with my sister and my nieces, I was not drinking. I got up every morning and ran through the streets of Venice over all those little bridges and the waterways, and all the vendors are setting up. Or 6 o'clock in the morning. I never would have done that if I'd been drinking. So I got to, that's feel lit. That was like amazing.
Oh, that sounds so amazing. Now I'm putting that on my bucket list. Wow.
Yeah. So I would say I've always loved exercise. So now to truly be doing it, to take care of myself and enjoy it and have goals. I'm a person who likes goals, not because I'm punishing myself or trying to make up for drinking. That makes me feel lit. And this makes me feel lit. Sharing with people, because now I know I went through this whole experience to share with other women who are struggling. And there's a lot of young women just starting this journey. And if I can help them to let them know, look, if you figure out that you're not going to be a mom, you don't have to be alone. And if I can help you in any way to not go down the road of numbing and instead learn how to process your grief and find community, then that makes me feel lit, because, why else am I here than to, but not help other women?
That's amazing.
I think you've found a passion and a mission, and I am thrilled that you joined us. So for our listeners who want to learn more about you and connect with you, where can they find you online or stay updated with what's going on with you, Maureen?
So my website and my Instagram are both Sober Fit Chick, because like I said, I was a trainer. So now I'm a sober fit chick. Even though chick, I'm getting a little old to be chick, but I'm going to keep it because chicks are still fun, right?
Yes. You're a chick.
Sober Fit Chick, and Sober Fit Chick LLC is my Instagram. And so that's where you can find me. I did write in a chapter of the Life Coach's Toolkit about depression and anxiety. And it's really geared toward other coaches who maybe don't coach in the alcohol arena, and they have a client and they've realized they're struggling with alcohol, how to address that without, to understand what alcohol really is, how addictive it is, and how it exacerbates depression and anxiety. It's so important to know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Congratulations on being a author of a book. That's so exciting.
I know you are too. And that was kind of a crazy opportunity. Like the opportunities since not drinking are just unbelievable. And I'm taking them, I also have a free weekend course, and it's Drink Less by Monday, because I was a binge drinker, and being a health person, I wouldn't drink during the week. But that weekend, man, would always throw me off. So if I can help people figure out a way to bridge from one week into the other by having a weekend without drinking and a way to do it and a guide to do it, that's what I put out there.
That's
awesome.
Great. That's so great.
Well, do you want to sign off today, Susan, with us?
I've just been listening and just, again, I think Ruby and I've said this like 3 times, that I'm just so glad we had you on the podcast. You're so well spoken. You're gorgeous. 58 looks awesome on you, girl.
I know.
And I'm like, but being
you both look beautiful.
Looks so much,
you all look
beautiful.
Good
on being alcohol free looks good on everybody, right? It just improves everything.
Yes.
And I am just so happy to have you here. And thank you so much for sharing your story so vulnerably. And yes, we're going to put everything in places you can find Maureen in the show notes. So please go there. And if this is resonating with you, reach out to us, reach out to Maureen. We want to connect you. That's what this is about, resourcing our listeners. So glad you were here.
Yeah.
And
thank you for the opportunity to share this. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you, Maureen. And thank you to all the listeners. Keep listening.
Yes.
Have a wonderful day and feel lit today.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to Feel Lit Alcohol Free Podcast. Do you have a question you'd like us to answer on the show?
All you need to do is head over to Apple Podcasts and do 2 simple things. Leave a rating and review telling us what you think of the show. And in that review, ask us any questions you have about breaking free from wine or living an alcohol-free lifestyle.
That's it. Then tune in to hear your question answered live. Don't forget to grab your copy of A Wine-Free Weekend at www.feelitpodcasts.com.
And remember, do something today that will help you feel lit.
See you next time.